Calls like these were routine. A kid falls off a roof, probably doing something stupid, and I patch them up. Simple. No emotions. No complications. Except the moment I stepped out of the ambulance and saw him sitting there, shirtless, smirking, completely at ease despite his scraped-up skin, I knew this wouldn't be routine. I knelt beside him. "You're the one who fell?" "Yup." He grinned. "You're the EMT?" "That's me. Name's Ryan." "Jesse," he said, eyes sweeping over me in a way that made something tighten in my chest. I ignored it and focused on my job. "Does this hurt?" I asked, pressing gently on his shoulder. He flinched but didn't move away. "A little." Then, with a cocky grin, "You've got strong hands." I sighed. I'd been hit on before, sure. But Jesse wasn't just flirting, he was pushing, testing. "How old are you?" I asked, mostly to remind myself of the answer I already knew. 18. Too young, I thought. Old enough, but too young. I finished my assessment and stood up. "You're banged up, but you'll be fine. Ice that shoulder, rest for a few days." He grabbed my wrist before I could leave. "You're just gonna walk away?" "Yeah," I said, even as my feet refused to move. Jesse tilted his head, eyes daring. "You sure?"
He hesitated. That was all I needed. I knew he wanted me. I could see it in the way his gaze lingered for half a second too long, in the tightness of his jaw. Ryan was hot, not in some fake gym rat way, but in a real, solid kind of way. Broad shoulders, strong arms, rough hands. The kind of guy who'd seen things. Lived. I liked that. And I liked the way he was fighting himself over me. "You could stay," I said, stepping closer. "Make sure I don't, pass out or something." Ryan exhaled sharply, like he was trying to blow away the thoughts in his head. "You're trouble, aren't you?" I grinned. "The best kind."
I should have left. I should have told him to take care of himself and walked out that door. But I didn't. Instead, I let Jesse pull me inside, let him press his hand against my chest, let him look up at me like I was the only thing he wanted in the world. "Tell me you don't want this," Jesse murmured. I should have. Instead, I let my hand slide to his waist, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my fingertips. His breath hitched. That was all it took. I kissed him. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped thinking.
His lips were softer than I expected. I had imagined Ryan would be rougher, more like the kind of guy who didn't have time for hesitation. But this was different. The kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't all heat and desperation. It was slow, deliberate, like he was trying to savor something forbidden. I pressed closer, feeling the strength of his body against mine. He was solid, unmovable. I wanted more, though I couldn't just settle for this. Not when I knew he was holding back. "Ryan," I breathed, pulling away just enough to speak. "What are you waiting for?" He didn't answer at first, just ran his hands through my hair, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. His eyes were dark, focused, but there was something else behind them, something I couldn't read. Ryan began, his voice strained. "You're too young." I smiled. Says a guy who's been holding me like he wants me just as much as I want him. His gaze flickered, and for a second, I saw the battle in his eyes. I stepped forward, closing the gap between us, pressing my lips to his again. This time, he didn't pull away.
I knew what I was doing was wrong, but damn if Jesse didn't make it hard to think. His lips were soft, but the way he kissed me, with that eager, unrestrained energy, it was intoxicating. His body was close to mine, pressing into me, and I could feel the heat between us. But I pulled back, taking a deep breath. This isn't right. He gave me a knowing look, a look that said he wasn't going to let me off the hook that easily. "What's wrong?" Jesse whispered. "I'm not a kid. I'm 18. I'm legal." I ran a hand through my hair, pacing for a second. I'd never let myself get this close to someone who was, almost 20 years younger. Jesus, what was I doing? But when Jesse reached for me again, it was like something snapped inside. I couldn't fight it anymore. I wanted him. I turned, my back against the wall, and before I knew it, Jesse was right there, pushing into me. His hands moved over my chest, touching the buttons of my uniform, trying to undo them. I let him. I was lost.
I didn't care about the age gap anymore. I didn't care about what was right or wrong. All I cared about was a man in front of me, Ryan, his body so close I could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong. I reached up, slipping my fingers under the hem of his shirt. He wasn't stopping me. I pulled it off, tossing it to the side, and ran my hands over his chest. He was warm, his muscles firm beneath my touch. He moaned softly as I kissed him again, my hands working to undo his pants. Ryan let me. He didn't pull away, didn't stop me. This felt like it was meant to happen, like we were moving in sync, even though it was reckless. Even though I knew I was pushing him to the edge, I could tell he wanted me. And right now, that was all that mattered.
Jesse was on me now, his body pressing against mine with an urgency that matched my own. The heat between us felt like a wildfire, and for a moment, all the doubts and the distance I'd tried to keep between us vanished. I couldn't stop. I let him pull off my pants, my body already responding to the way he moved, confident, eager, relentless. His hands were everywhere, and I found myself matching his pace, tugging at his clothes, wanting to feel the warmth of his skin against mine. I'd never done anything like this before. Never let myself give in so completely. But Jesse made me forget.
His hands were everywhere, and every touch sent a wave of heat through me. Ryan wasn't just giving in. He was all in. He was kissing me like I was the air he needed to breathe, and I wasn't stopping. I wasn't backing down. I wanted him, all of him, and I could feel that he wanted the same. The way his hands gripped me, the way his lips traced my neck. It wasn't just physical. It was more than that. We moved together, in a rhythm neither of us had planned, but both of us had been craving.
When we finally collapsed onto the bed, breathless and tangled in each other, I couldn't help but think, maybe this was one of those moments you don't question. I'd spent my life being cautious, playing it safe. But tonight, with Jesse, I felt alive. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of age or regret. I just felt. And damn, did it feel good. The next day, it was supposed to be a routine shift. Chest pains at a downtown gym. Probably another guy pushing himself too hard to impress someone, maybe a little dehydration, maybe some lingering anxiety from a breakup. Happens more often than you'd think. What I didn't expect was Adam. He was sitting on the bench by the front desk when I walked in, his shirt damp with sweat, chest rising fast like he was trying to calm himself but hadn't quite figured out how. Early 30s, maybe, lean but strong build, with a jawline that could cut glass and a stubborn curl of dark hair stuck to his forehead. I tried not to notice the way his eyes locked on mine when I approached. "Hey, I'm Ryan. EMT. Mind if I check you out?" That smile he gave me, half amusement, half curiosity, should have been my first warning. He nodded. "Not at all. I was hoping you'd be the one they sent." I laughed under my breath and pulled out the portable monitor. "You flirting with your medic already?" I said, trying to keep it light. "Professional. Maybe. Depends on how good you are with your hands." Jesus. I busied myself with the leads, grateful for the excuse to look away. His heart rate was slightly elevated, but that could have been the flirting. Or maybe it was me.
I knew I was pushing it, but something about him made me reckless. He had that quiet calm, the kind that only comes from seeing too much. The kind that tells you he's good under pressure, but probably sucks at small talk. My favorite kind. When he knelt beside me, I caught a whiff of something clean and a little smoky. Soap and sweat, and maybe a hint of coffee. He looked up at me through thick lashes, and I forgot, briefly, that I was supposed to be short of breath. He placed a stethoscope on my chest. His touch was efficient, impersonal. But those hands? Yeah, I noticed. "You're fine," he said after a moment, eyes scanning the monitor. "Little tachycardia, but nothing alarming. You feel dizzy. Only when you lean in like that." I replied. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. Barely, but it was there.
I should have shut it down. I always do. I've had patients flirt before, it happens. Comes with the uniform, apparently. But Adam had this way of getting under your skin, of making everything feel like a challenge. And I'm not great at turning away from a challenge. "You need a ride to the hospital?" I asked, professional tone back in place. He paused. "Only if you're coming with me." Damn it. I knew I was in trouble. It was supposed to be a routine shift. Chest pains at a downtown gym, mid-30s male, conscious and alert. I'd barely finished my protein bar when the call came in. By the time we reached the scene, Adam was sitting upright, flushed but smiling like he knew something the rest of us didn't. Heart rate was elevated but steady, BP a little high, not critical. His vitals weren't what made me uneasy. It was the way he looked at me. Like he recognized me. Or wanted me to recognize him. Now we were in the back of the rig, just me and him, my partner driving us toward the hospital. I'd done my check-in, stuck the leads to his chest, asked the usual questions, even made a lame joke to calm him down. He laughed, really laughed, and it hit me in the gut harder than I expected. Then he said it. "So, you got a number I can text when I'm not strapped to a gurney?" I blinked, caught somewhere between professionalism and something else I hadn't felt in a long time. He smirked, sensing the hesitation. "What? You don't give your number to guys who flirt in ambulances." I opened my mouth, but the words didn't come. His eyes stayed on mine. Steady, curious, and maybe a little hopeful. I cleared my throat. "Let's focus on getting you cleared first." Adam leaned his head back against the pillow, that grin not fading. "All right, but I'm not forgetting. You shouldn't either." The rig rocked slightly as we turned onto 5th Street. Hospital was 4 minutes out. I stared down at my gloves, flexed my fingers, and told myself it was just another call. Just another patient. So why did it feel like something else entirely?